Now, without taking any more time, I would like to invite our next speaker on stage, Mr. Arun Kumar Saravanan, Director and Head, Civil Engineering Department, Bureau of Indian Standards. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. I stand here representing the Bureau of Indian Standards, the national standards body of the country. And as you, I'm first of all glad to the organizers as well as to the British High Commission for organizing this particular event on the important topic, particularly when the Prime Minister of India has been insisting that by the year 2047 the nation should be in a well-established position, and I'm sure all the previous speakers, I've been attending this day only, my colleague and the National Member Secretary Mr. Prashant Yadav has been attending for the last 2 days. So we've got a long way to go, particularly making in the national standards. We have skipped one stage from industry level standard in the country, but directly going to the national level standards. So quickly about BIS, for those who are who have known only as an ISA marking institute, I come from the civil engineering department. There are 17 other divisions where we do standardization, and all the standards are made under national technical committees. Over 38 such technical committees are functioning within the Civil Engineering Division Council, and as for any standards body, we work within a set defined scope of work. And coming into this particular topic on BIM, we have an exclusive committee called CED 29, which talks about construction management, wherein we have so far published standards over 14 parts of construction project management. And as mentioned by the previous speaker, that the next particular topic on digitization has been taken, and exclusively panel number P3 has been constituted, roping in experts in the country and roping in interested parties in the country. And for example, what are the work done by these 38 committees? I will skip some of the slides. We are known for these basic Indian standards which are there to make resilient construction in the country. So all the more with respect to loading codes or earthquake design codes or wind loads, etc. Those are the typical standards which we have been making, and also with respect to fires or other cyclones or landslide related standards have been in the making. I'll skip some of them, and typically building materials, we know those standards on which you can put ISA mark. And these days the government of India has also been giving a good push to bring in many new materials into mandatory ISA marking, be it the plywood or the ceramic tiles or even the water efficient plumbing products, etc. So I'll skip some of them and directly go to this particular topic, that these IS 15883 series were formulated very recently in the last right about 2009 onwards up to 2022, taking making detailed standards provisions for each of the construction project management. And I'm glad to note government departments, the user groups, etc. Recently, a standards national action plan was established based on interaction with the relevant government departments, relevant industry associations, and also by writing to various ministries, as a result of which over 70 subjects relevant to civil engineering were identified for making standards on priority in the next 5 years. That is, 1 year is already gone, and we are already into making and we have achieved some of the standards on well. On the screen, second number point is very much a high important priority area for us, and that's the reason be it Dr. Surendra Babu or other members of our CED 29 panel who have been indicating that Indian standards, the BIS has been working on this particular topic particularly. And you can see under SNAP we have got other areas including on demolition and safety, which again has been finalized recently. And likewise, as per the priority set by the users' requirements as well as by the government, we are trying to work and achieve in the least possible time. And more importantly, coming to this particular, even on 3D printing, for example, a separate National Technical Committee is working, which has got representation from the industry bodies, the academia, the researchers, as well as the government agencies, because ultimately whatever standards come, those have to be practiced or implemented. And for that reason, we have got these dynamic committees which are open in membership, and they take representation of every interested party, and accordingly standards are made. These are the examples of IS 15883 series, right from the general construction project management guidelines. We have gone all the way up to part number 12 on integration management, and even recently the procurement management standard was also published. And more importantly, even on project formulation and appraisal was formulated in the year 2016. Coming to our topic about today's discussion, as of now, based on the discussions and based on the consensus arrived at, 3 parts to a series of Indian standards have been decided on the topic of BIM and digital adoption guidelines, and we are going for the open BIM software type only. As mentioned, part 1 is for the appointing parties, part 2 is for the lead appointed parties, and the part 3 is for the appointed parties. And then each of these 3 documents have got their own scope, and as the previous speaker did mention about a white paper also, which was considered and debated in multiple sittings within the BIS technical committee, because where do we head? We are starting afresh. That was a decision. That particular exercise was started 2 years back. You would appreciate that we are come directly to a national standard instead of going for any company level standard or an association level standard, which is the general hierarchy of making a standard or taking cue or reference to make national standards. So making that first particular draft is always a challenging task, and I am sure a few of the committee members who are very much present in this very hall, they must be understanding that they have been patiently working, and they have patiently been insisting or patiently trying to convince people that this is what is seemingly right for the nation, and that is how consensus building takes time in the BIS process itself. But I'm very glad already the part 1 document is, the basic document is already in shape, and maybe in the next few months it should be out in the form of a public commenting documents. And similarly, work for the 2 other parts are in the making. And as I mentioned, as we are also part of the ISO as a founding member, we have tried to adopt or we have tried to take base information from the ISO specifications and not depend on any one particular company, not any one particular agency. And just this is only for information. You see typically on every Indian standard at the last couple of pages who are those members who are involved in that particular standard making. This is for your information, immediate information. We have got representation both from the government side as well as from the private entities and who are very much involved, including from the academia, because this particular topic everybody showing keen interest, and that is the reason I think these 3 documents are going to come in a comprehensive way, because the first set of standards are going to be so comprehensive. And because we are just in the making of the first version of the standard, I think I will not talk much about it, as and when we will have a document which will be in the form of a public discussion document or a document in wide circulation, which will be up in the BIS website for comments. I think once again at that point of time, BIS will be joining hands with a couple of you in organizing that particular series of events, and probably go across places in the country also to show people that the National Standards body is now ready with the standard on these particular topics. So as I mentioned, this is a work in hand, and there are volunteers who have been doing, who have joined hands with BIS in making the standards. As on today, whomsoever is interested, maybe we can be in touch with us, with me or with my colleague Mr. Prashant Yadav, and maybe your interest can be translated into becoming, if at all possible, if you have a knack of writing standards, unlike a paper or a textbook, maybe we can also have you on technical committee in discussions. We can invite you and take your thoughts in the standards making. I'll stop here, and I'll be happy to take any specific questions. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. That was really insightful. Apologies, I missed the first few minutes of the presentation. So this is just going over what you've said. And it's really good that we have a committee which is looking at implementing this, and I do understand that these things take a little longer than always expected. What is your opinion in terms of, as in it's great to see it's an alignment with 19650. In terms of adopting 19650, is it possible, or I don't know the mechanisms, but would it help if that is signal that we are going to align with 19650? We are going to, so what, I'll give you an example. In other countries, what has happened is, there are obviously country-specific annexures that have been developed. Because ISO 19650 is too high level, it's not too detailed. But the first thing that has happened is they've said, we are going for 19650. That's what we're going to go with. And then they have taken time, because the annexures take time. Even in the UK, they took a long time. It took about 5 years to come out.
Right.
And in fact, yeah. So is that a method that has been looked at, or is not possible in India, or what's the thing?
Yeah, we started with that 19650. I remember myself when I was dealing in the place of, on the shoes of Prashant Yadav, and the committee was not coming into that particular consensus at that point of time. It was maybe 6 years back or 7 years backward, so they were not ready at that point of time. But now at least, they have made one version of the document, taking some inputs from ISO also, and due credits are coming in the forward of that particular standard. That's what I can say. But as you are right, first version of a national standard for any country is going to take time. I remember examples of our own use of glass in buildings in the country. 16231, 4 parts of it which we made. It took exactly 4.5 years to come with the first standard. But now once the standard was out, immediately by 1.5 years or so, the first revision to it also has come, because people generally in this country, they don't treat a draft standard properly. For them, the first standard should be out at any point of time. They want to use it, feel it, and then they will say, no, I have a little apprehension. I need to suggest some points, etc. Anyway, that's for that reason we are trying to bridge that gap by sharing the draft standard also in a form that this is how it will ideally be implemented. So we are trying to break that particular ice, but we did consider this 19650 also, but this is how it's going now. Okay. Yeah.
Yesterday I was having a discussion with some of your members of the committee.
Members.
What they indicated is that when we are going to talk about standards for BIM, the output, when BIM is going to be used in the sector by itself, the output is actually going to impact the legal aspects of a contract. It's also going to impact the other existing established standards as part of the things that you have done so far. So are you, when you say 1 year timeline, are you going to evaluate these linkages within 1 year, or are they going to come over a period of time later on?
That will be separate. That will be separate. That's what is the understanding as of now. That will be coming separate, because getting this main document itself will take that 1 year period. But I think we have crossed more than 5 months period. 5 to 6 month period is already done, I think so.
So that means we are looking at 6 months from now, not 1 year from now.
Yeah, you can say so. You can say so. Yes.
Great.
You can expect that. Yeah, that's a hand over there.
It's more a comment from the inside. I'm part of the committee. This is Venkata from IIT Bombay. Thank you. So I'll just tell you that there are a lot of healthy debates which are going on because we are all striving to achieve what we think would be the best for the country, and there are quite very differing opinions also, and then we are trying to do it. And as rightly pointed out, the initial, the putting the pen on paper will take time, because we don't know what letter to write first, right? So, but I think we are reaching some kind of consensus for example, to have our own standard in terms of things. We are also discussing these linkages mostly on what could be the contractual guidelines, etc. Then what we are thinking of is this document, and together with some kind of guidebooks or handbooks might suit the purpose, but it will take in phases, as rightly pointed out by Dr. Arun. So that's more or less a little bit more to what he has already told you about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor Venkat.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is Swaraj Dattagupta from Confederation of Digital Construction Practitioners, India. I see in your presentation that two things. One is that it is a guideline.
Yeah.
And secondly, I see there are 3 parts which have been worked out, which is defining only the stakeholders.
Yes.
Is it that all, or is it going to come farther? Because that is not probably the.
That's-
I
that is-
mean, it is only that's just beginning.
It is the beginning or the starting point, I can say. We are bringing with as 3 parts to start with, and then a series will come out. Maybe that's the reason I mentioned at the last point, we need more volunteers, more interested parties who can also pitch in for parallelly developing the other set of standards. But I'm sure that the other series of standards, the first version will come only after 1 or 2 of these parts will come out in the form of a wide circulation stage, because we need to also get some confidence that a level of acceptance will come once we reach that particular stage, and then immediately maybe parallelly we can have the other series of standards.
Because basic principles and concepts and the process, at least for delivery portion or at least for the construction portion or project portion, that is way probably, a long way to go, it looks like. Because it's only probably 10%.
That's right.
So,
That's
if it is so that we have to probably wait for next 5 years probably, if not more.
That can be reduced only if we get more number of people on this P3 shall become 29 P4 and 29 P5. So that's what I said, we can have parallel hands working, and I'm glad to know that today we have been seeing that more than 30% of the work of the world is happening from here. That means we have high quality caliber of mindset within this country. Maybe those people should also volunteer, and we will also be extending our hands to collaborate with them and bring them on part of the CD29 series of panels, and we can together do this in as minimum time as possible, if not 5 years, maybe 2 to 3 years time or so. It is doable.
When you say it is guideline, what do you mean? Is it not a specification, or is it?
It cannot be a specification, because specification per se means, it's not a code of practice
Code of
like
practice.
456 or IS 800, which is for concreting or for steel design, etc. To start with, these will be a guideline standard only. It will not, because the people have to both learn together, both in the level, at the level of college as well as at the level of practice. Maybe after 5 years down the line, maybe the guidelines may be converted into code of practice, etc. But we start with guidelines for this type of
So
subjects.
till that time, people can use these ISO series?
Of course, they are free to not only use ISO, any other standard. As a project owner, they are free to pick any national standard also. But once a national standard comes, we also will be pitching in for people to refer to our Indian standards to start with, being a democratic country.
Sir,
Yeah.
I'm also representing Building Smart India, and I'm very glad to see Open BIM. So I'm just wanting to know, are you integrating the Open BIM standards into the BIS standard?
Maybe I'll not be able to answer that. Maybe Prashant or Professor Venkat should be able to help me out with that, because, yeah.
I'll try to answer from BIS perspective on this. So I'll probably might have to take it offline. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll take it offline and then probably do it then.
Right,
Yeah, thanks.
And the second question I have, sir, is from an India perspective, like you just said, 30% of the global capacity in terms of content is coming from India, which means that this capacity is aligning themselves to work in a standard which is acceptable globally. Now, when we are developing a standard which is very fast, like things in the past we used to change in 10 years or decades. With AI now we are talking months. And this standard is very much linked to technology. Some of our sections which were there previously with reference to, before cloud era, now after cloud era, those sections may not be even applicable. So is it possible to have a strategic document come out for review first?
Right.
Get the acceptance on that, and then you move forward towards developing that. Because if there is a strategic disconnect with reference to industry acceptance,
Right.
then you may get a lot of relevant feedback on that. That's just a request or a feedback, if you can consider.
That's a right suggestion. In fact, I remember in our electronics department also did the same way when they were going for the latest latest international practices 5 years ago. Sort of guidelines was, and not a standard, but their open paper, white paper was floated on the BIS website, and a tremendous amount of events were organized across, and then we took feedback from various set of peoples, and based on that particular feedback, the first standard was developed in our electronics department. Similarly, I can say that maybe we should also experiment here on this, but not experiment, rather do it right away, as you have rightly given this example. things are changing at a much unimaginable speed in this digitization in construction. So maybe we'll take that cue, and then maybe we'll go ahead. We'll be organizing a couple of such sessions. First, something will come in our website for people to share their thoughts, and then maybe we'll have both physical as well as online events also. Thank you everyone for this patient here.
So please thank you so much, Mr. Saravanan, for answering everyone's queries as well. And may I request Ms. Sangeeta Mehta to come and hand over the memento to Mr. Saravanan.